So this is just going to be a quick review or quick overview of how the online test batch entry process works for the Championships Hub LMS platform. We're going to go through a couple of things: how to check the contest, that it has the right contest score area in it, how to load those online test scores so that they're ready for import. We'll see how to get that file from the LMS to download it so that you can import it into the CMS. And then we'll actually import one, and we'll use that in a couple of different ways. For this demonstration, we're going to use the architecture drafting contest. So here in my test system that everybody can download from the registration site to play with and test, I've got half dozen or so people registered. I've already got their contestant numbers, everything's set, they've got their email addresses, all the data looks pretty good. I want to double check the scoring tab and make sure that I have a skill area for, in this case I'm calling it online test. Again, it doesn't matter what you call it, but as you remember from earlier videos, as long as under the maintenance screen you've got the name set however you want, then this name has to match what you've got set in the main. So I have a score here that I'm going to have 100 points for my online test. Now if I plan to do these other things, I'm actually going to have judges check these other things, hand sketch and exterior elevation, all this stuff. Then I'll still use the Excel scorecard process just like I always have for running my event, but the online test is the piece that we're going to be importing from the LMS. And we're going to see there's two options there if we want to have the online test be the only score that the students get, or we want to go ahead and have judges actually do some actual judging and give them scores for these other things, and the online test just gets added on. We'll see kind of how both those options work. So part one is I verified I do have online test here. Now if I go to the professional test and online test batch entry screen next, here's where I want to use the load contestants button just to make sure my latest and greatest list of contests is here. And then when I choose, I can have, remember, 3 different tests if I want in addition to the professional development test, but right now I'm just going to do the online test. And I want to work with that online test for the contest of architectural drafting. So there's those half dozen students and their contestant numbers and their email addresses, and of course they don't have any scores yet. So I've got all these different options here at the top right for how I could import or export various files. We've talked in other videos about the generic results, class marker results. This particular one is about how to import Championship Hub results. So I need to get those Championship Hub results from the LMS. There's just a short segment we're going to look at on how to get that information from the Championship Hub. We'll download that into a CSV on our, we're going to store it on our USB stick just to keep everything simple, but you can put it wherever you want. So let's go see how we would download that results file from the LMS. As a brief overview from the LMS system, if I've logged in and find a particular contest that I want to get the scores for, I can click onto that contest and then access the assignments menu at the top. From there, I want to be sure I'm on the grades and performance tab, which will tell me how each student did. And all I really need to do is download or export that list of those students using this export or download button here. That will generate an Excel file, really a CSV or comma separated value file, with the code for your particular event and the code for the particular test or contest, and then it just says open grade. So I click that, it will open up an Excel file that will have the data in it that I've downloaded. And when I open that Excel file up that I just downloaded from the LMS, it's got all the data in it that I need to import. I'm going to widen these columns here so we can see what's in there. This is just some sample test data we can play with, but it's got effectively the member ID, which is their user ID, the name. It may have the name broken out, it may not, depends on how the data was sent in. But the key thing is it's got the email address of each student. And then here we have the columns that we're going to import. The only one we really care about is the technical assessment points grade, which is their actual points that they received as a score. The key thing is we don't want to mess with any of these column headings. We don't want to delete anything. We want to leave this file exactly as it is. We just want to save it. I'm going to save it to my USB stick so it's easy for me to keep track of and figure out where things are. I'm going to save it as that name of the event, the name of the code for the contest, and then open grades is the name of the file. So now I've saved that file. It's going to be in a CSV or comma delimited format, which is perfect. And then I can import that into the CMS platform in a moment. Okay, so back in the CMS now, I've got my file ready to go. I'm going to go to online test batch entry screen. I'm working on the online test as opposed to a technical test or some other test, whatever. I only want to use that first, most common one, the online test. And I'm working on architectural drafting. I don't have any scores yet, so that's good. Let me drag my USB stick over so I can tell you one more thing about that file. That's the CSV file that we just downloaded from the LMS. This name is what it comes down from the LMS as. You can use whatever name you want. It's going to have a code, a number that will be your state or your event ID or something, and then the code from your contest. That's how the system kind of keeps track of. AD is the code for architectural drafting, but that name is not important. If you find it easier to rename these files so you can keep track of whatever they really are, you can rename them. It's totally fine. And the naming is not important, but it is important for you to keep track of which files you've done and which files you have not. So I might make a new folder here called completed. And when I finish this one, I'll move it down to the completed folder so I know, hey, that one's done. I have 10 or 15 or 20 more to go, but at least I've done that one. So that's the file. In it, just as a reminder, it's got the stuff we care about. The most important part is that email address. And those email addresses are going to match these email addresses that we have for each person. So it's going to automatically look and see, do I have a contestant named Andy G at AOLyahoo.com. It's going to look at that architectural drafting contest and say, hey, look, there's Andy G at AOLyahoo.com. So it's going to use that number for that student's total score. All right, so let's go ahead and import it and see what happens. From here, of all these different options up here at the top right, I'm really interested in importing that CSV file from the Championship Hub as opposed to a generic file or a class marker file. I'm using the Championships Hub, so I'll click Import. I'll probably get an error warning because I forgot to tell it which match method I want to use. Remember, this thing's capable of importing and matching via contestant numbers or email addresses. Some systems, you may be using some other non-Championships Hub system that relies on contestant numbers, and that when you choose this one. For us, we're going to import by email address, match by email address on that import. So I've told it which test, I've told it architectural drafting is the contest, I've told it I want to match the imported scores by email address. Now when I import the Championships Hub file, it's going to ask me and kind of read these through and make sure I'm doing the right thing. Yep, I want to import a Championships Hub CSV for the online test results for architectural drafting. That's just the contest ID number for it, using email to match by. Yep, that's what I want. Now I'll find my file on my USB stick or wherever you put it. Doesn't make any difference where you keep them. Just store them somewhere. You can open them up easy. Architectural drafting, that's the one I want. I'll open it. It will go through and think, and then this message is kind of important. You want to read through this. It'll tell me it successfully imported 7 scores from Excel, of which 7 were successfully matched using that email address, and that will be their online test score. This is where you'll notice if you do something wrong, maybe a few students didn't have an email, or the emails didn't work, or the student changed their email halfway through, or who knows what. This might say, I was able to import 10 scores, but I only matched 5 of them because the email addresses were wrong. That's your clue that something went wrong, and you need to dig a little deeper and figure out, well, which student's not going to get a score because he messed around with his email address. But in this case, it's perfect. I imported 7, I matched 7. And that's great. And there's the one we saw. Remember, Andy G was going to get 60 points. It automatically tagged that 60 by his email address to his name. So that's perfect. And that's effectively done. So if I were going to use the online test as one of the many different scores, right, this judges are scoring a bunch of stuff, then I'd be done with this one. I'd just close it on out, and I'd go ahead over to import scorecards and import the scorecard whenever my judges were done for architectural drafting, and it would merge those online test results in with all the judges' test results to give me a total. But in this case, I had decided I want to use the other option, which is to say for my architectural drafting, the only score I'm going to have is this online test. because we're in a virtual environment, I didn't get any judges, nobody could help, nobody's together, whatever. I'm not going to do all these other things. The only thing we're going to judge these students on this year, right now for this contest anyway, is the online test. And so instead of having to bother with importing all those scores cards that have nothing on them, I want to use this new feature that we have on the, I just went back to the online test batch entry, same place we were a second ago. I want to go and pick my contest, architectural drafting. I see my scores there. I basically want to tell it, I would like to summarize these online test scores that I loaded as the final manual scores for this contest. Meaning whatever scores I got here, you know, if I did a professional development test, that would be added on as well. But I want to summarize this and make this the final result. I'm not going to do those scorecards. So I click that button and it'll ask me again some questions. Are we sure we want to summarize these online and professional test results as the final manual scores for the architectural drafting? And it's kind of warning us here, be sure you've imported all the online test results, meaning, remember, you could do up to 3, right? We can do up to 3 different online tests with the SkillsCMS platform now. So if you're doing 3 different tests plus the professional development test, that's 4 different scores you could have all online imported. Be sure you've done them all before you do this. Well, we only have 1. We got that 1 online test plus whatever we did for the professional development. Yes, I would like to summarize that. And it tells me, okay, the online test scores have been summarized. Now I can tabulate the winners and generate a score report from the manual scoring screen. Perfect. Now just to kind of verify one other thing, because I know this is going to happen, it may cause some confusion in a second. We did, in an earlier video, we did import professional development tests for every contest, so I also have their professional development results for these particular students, so that's why these numbers are going to look a little larger than you'd expect. And he's going to have more than 60 points. He's going to have 60 plus 88, because his professional development test, he got 88. And on his online test, Andy got 60. So it'll add that all together when I've clicked that manual scoring. Now, to go see where that is, I'm going to close this down and go back to the manual scoring screen, because I don't want to import scorecards. Remember, I don't have judges for this. All I had was that online test. I choose my architectural drafting contest. There's my results. I'm just going to tabulate the winners. Choose architectural drafting as the one I want to report on. There they are. You can see how it added up, the 60 plus the 88 for Andrew. He's got 148. When I click the score report button and zoom in there, you can see I've got my final results there with the gold, the silver, and the bronze. Oops, I've got a tie I'm going to have to break here, so I'm going to have to figure out, go figure out by looking at those online tests or the professional development test or whatever and say, all right, how do I break that tie? I realized later on I'll go check those results. I'll ask what the tiebreaker is, whatever, and find out that Nathan is the winner because he did a little bit better in the professional development test. So I would just make a minor adjustment. Remember, this is manual scoring, so I can say Nathan actually got 161 on this instead of 160. Tabulate winners again, hit my score report. That should have broken my tie. There we go. Now I've got a gold, a silver, and a bronze, and I'm all set. So that's how the online professional test batch entry process works in conjunction with the Championships Hub Learning Management System.